Please check out our sponsors NordVPN for the best in online security. It's the best VPN on the market, and you can try it risk-free now with a 30-day money-back guarantee by visiting nordvpn.com/heartandhand. That's nordvpn.com/heartandhand, and it's risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Hello everyone and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is David Edgar and as always I am your host here to reflect on a pitiful performance at Rugby Park yesterday, which of course has led to us all really questioning the direction of this side. I'm not sure some of us have stopped questioning the direction of the side for a while, but everything that we had been concerned about came to a head yesterday, and so much so that for the first time I even saw calls from the manager's head from a certain Mr. Andy McGowan.
I was hacked. I forgot. I've slept on. I was hacked. Is that the excuse we use nowadays?
That's the excuse usually for when you say something that you look back on and you don't mean. Well, you'll have plenty of chance to.
I'll expand on that. Don't worry.
You'll have plenty of chance to walk it back. And we're also joined this week by Kevin Armstrong. Hello, Kev.
Hello lads, if the club's anything like our passing yesterday, it'll be going sideways and backwards.
Well, it does appear to be that way. First things first, right? We'll talk about the game and then the general situation. But here is something that I noticed last night and today seemed to follow. If you speak to a lot of Rangers fans, and we all do, friends, family, but then social media, message boards, etc., which aren't always the most realistic guides, but still give you a general impression. After a defeat, there's usually fights because people are angry, right? And they take it out on each other, whether it's reasonable or not. People double down on opinion, all of these things. There wasn't. There really wasn't. And there are two reasons for this. One, I think, and this is the really worrying thing, is just the acceptance of, yeah, well, we know we're rubbish. And secondly, because everyone's in agreement. And nobody is saying, no, we're heading in the right direction and, we just need to give it time. Nobody's saying that. It is, generally speaking, Andy, people are looking at it going, that is a mediocre squad and he's a mediocre manager, so this is what it's going to be like. And I mentioned this in my video yesterday, that I must admit, I wasn't shocked yesterday. And I suppose in a way I was slightly surprised because I thought, I had the bad feeling that we might drop points. I thought we might draw, but they still, even with my low expectations, managed to under-deliver. So I suppose in a way that's almost perversely impressive. But I just look at that squad and go, that wasn't an off day. And they weren't anywhere near their very best, but their very best isn't significantly better than that, and their very worst isn't significantly worse than that. That's just roughly in the scope of where they might be on any given day.
Aye. My head's been scrambled, so I'll try and make sense of this, but I'll start with, we've all got a personal relationship with Rangers, right? So me, you, Kevin, listeners, every fan has got a personal relationship with Rangers, and in the recent past, when I've seen kind of hyperbolic exclamations about what's happening at the club and on the park, you can agree or you can disagree, but over time, your kind of perspective changes, because me and you, David, were angry young men at one point, and I can remember cracking up at the slightest wee thing, and you get a wee bit older, you get more perspective, you get a wee bit more worldly wise, you think, and you tend to give people opportunity, you see the bigger picture. And I remember vividly having this same kind of pod with you, with Ksenia. I don't know, you'll not remember, you've done more pods than MD, but we had this exact same kind of chat, and I'm not want to go straight to a comparison with Ksenia, but the situation was similar. We had given the guy opportunity because he's inherited a mess, there was a rebuild ongoing, there was new players that weren't gelling, etc., and you give them opportunity up to a point where you're like, right, hold on. And yesterday, I'm in the ground, I'm the same as you, I've not got much expectation. Even when it was nothing each, we're getting it the last 15, 20 minutes, I'm like, all right, we're still 5 points behind. And then I check myself, my inner dialogue says, we're not guaranteed to get this point here.
No.
And what happened yesterday was a feeling deja vu, and it was a load of things. It felt the same for me as Van Bronckhorst in November 2022 at St Mirren, when we're playing against a team that we should be beating, we're labouring, we're absolutely wedded to a philosophy and a tactic. In that case, it was Ryan Kent hugging the touchline, stuff like that. And there was zero ability to move or change the dynamic even a degree. And you're watching it and you're like, these players don't believe in what they're doing. They don't believe in what the instructions are. And even if they did, they're not got the capabilities to execute. And yesterday, pretty much after the half hour mark, I'm watching that and I'm like, this is the same. We've got a team here are wedded to a philosophy. They can't execute it. They neither get the ability nor the set up to do it. And I, for the first time, because I've been one of the guys that said, look, come on or no come on, I don't see much difference. You know, the old adage, what manager's going to get married at them? And if they do, is it going to be for long term and is it going to be, incrementally important? But yesterday I was watching that and I was like, no, this is to a point now where what does this manager do now? Because we've set up in a way that we clearly can't play, and we can talk about Dessers and all the rest of it, but from front to back, we're easy to play against. We have no alternatives. We've no set pieces. We don't even win free kicks in and around the box because we've got such powder per front line. And the kind of the feeling I was getting from the crowd, from my supporters around about me, was, as you say, apathy as opposed to out and out anger, because we've kind of been here before. And that was why, and no even in anger, because when I put things on Twitter after the matches, it's kind of cathartic, but it's also me kind of laying down, right, this is where I'm at. And I said something along the lines of, if we're the CEO, you should be looking to who's the next manager. Because I don't think he's going anywhere, right? And it's important I bring that in at the start of the conversation, because where we're at, we're not going to sack this manager. But you can always have redemption, but the odds are getting longer and longer and longer. And what really, really worries me is that, as I say, wedded to a philosophy, wedded to tactics, and what can he do now? He cannot go and say, oh, by the way, boys, today's training is totally different. We're working in shape, and forget everything I've been telling you about for the last whatever months. We're trying this now, because you lose all credibility as a manager in the eyes of some that have been waiting for it, And that is my big problem. He talks about, and I know there's a wee bit lost in translation, what's the word he uses? Automatisms. He talks about his philosophy and it's automatisms, which I think he means is, players doing repetition, and they do things naturally.
They become second nature.
Yeah. Exactly. And what's become second nature is, it wasn't even Van Bronckhorst's horseshoe, it was a horseshoe 2000. It was the players come deep, knock it back to centre half. And I get the patience. And for the first 20 minutes, I was like, no, let's keep the game inert so we don't get into physicality. But you've got to then do the other part, which is the injection of pace, the injection of quality, the attacking prowess. And you will not get that with some of the players that I'm sure we'll talk about at the front end of our park. It's just no possible. So for me, yesterday was a watershed in terms of my attitude towards come on. I don't think he's going anywhere, but I'm like, right, maybe he's not going to be the answer here. And some of you will be listening saying, welcome to the party, Andy, but that's just my style. I take time and I give people opportunity. But there's also a couple of players there that I'm like, do you know what? No more. And I don't care what they're on in terms of wages. And we can talk about that later.
Yeah, God, there's so much to unpack here. But firstly, on the what is this Rangers team, right? And I think there's an issue, and you mentioned Van Bronckhorst there, who of course was far more successful, remember, than Clement has been. But the thing about Gio and now him and Beale to a degree is, one thing I think that they have is, because they're modern coaches, and we all know that there's philosophies in modern coaching. Gio has in fact been at City and whatnot, and one of them, Kev, is dominate possession, right? Possession is the be all and end all. You've got to be in possession. And I just think that sometimes they look at games and we've had a lot of possession, so they're starting from, well, that was a good thing, right? And I'm like, yeah, because they're happy for us to have possession. It's different for us. It's not like playing in England. Teams are quite happy to let you have the ball because they just want to sit in their shape. And, I would call it men behind the ball, but the term is a low block in the modern world. So possession for us is almost a given. It's going to happen. If you or I took Rangers tomorrow, we would have possession because teams wouldn't deviate too far for their game plan. And I think this mentality is a stumbling block from them because it begins with, right, let's control the game. And as Andy says, keep it almost inert. And what that actually leads to then are just these tepid performances where the other side are quite happy. They stick in their shape. They're organised. They compete for second balls and whatnot, and Rangers just lapse into keeping the ball and endlessly recycling it in places that don't hurt the opposition, and that is what we witnessed yesterday.
It is, because as you say, we have possession, and like all stats, right, they're brilliant, right? You can make them show what you want, right? But our football is boring. When we have possession, it's slow, it's laboured, it's many touches, it's back the way. We don't ask questions of teams like Kilmarnock. We don't go up, maybe have to retreat a wee bit, then go again, hope to pull someone out of position, then we're in, and then it's quick. We don't slow it down, then inject the pace. We slow it down, we slow it down, we slow it down. Eventually it goes back to Butland. And listen, like you mentioned, teams in England can do this because other teams will come up and press you high, they'll leave space. Kilmarnock don't. Okay, you've got the ball.
They'll sit there quite happy and
you
go for set pieces. Yeah,
we're not going to move, and we didn't make them uncomfortable at any point yesterday. Derek McInnes said in his post-match interview, the game went exactly as how we thought it was going to be, and we weren't in really any danger. And that's not a word of a lie. And I say, you boys have mentioned the previous managers, and I think this is why the fans feel the way they do, because it's the same errors as Gio made, it's the same errors as Beale made, it's the same formation, it's mostly the same players or type of player. If we were sitting and Clement had brought in a couple of youth players, right, we're playing 3-5-2 for example, and we were playing okay, but we were just missing that thing, he would have more support. But he's making all the same mistakes, it's the same slow laboured play, as you mentioned, lots of possession, sterile possession, doing absolutely nothing with it. And even when we do have a quick break, we have no pace in either our play or our players to get up quickly. It was a classic yesterday with Dessers where they somehow managed to lose the ball when we had an overload and slow us down again.
4 passes on and he picks a fifth option and passes it straight to Kilmarnock player. On that, Kev, and I think it is an interesting point because for me, if you look at the past 5-6 years, Rangers' European performances, even this season, for example, when's been our best performance? Malmo. And it's almost counterintuitive to see a side that struggles in Scotland and then goes up and plays better opposition and plays better. But the reason for that is that's what we're set up to do. We are set up like a European side. We're set up like a team. Now, obviously, you meet real quality that you'll still struggle because that's just facts of life. But by that, what I mean is Rangers' game, this possession, which is generally what's played, it just doesn't work in our unique set of circumstances in Scotland. Andy, let's get down then to brass tacks about yesterday. Now, first of all, I completely agree with something both of you said, which is Rangers are boring to watch. Now, that is just a fact, and so many fans feel that way for a reason. It's because we're boring to watch. It's not something that's spread about. It's not something that has garnered some currency because somebody said it and everybody's picked up on it. It's people who pay money to go and watch this football or pay for subscriptions to watch it on the TV are watching it, and it's boring and it's dull. And it is, right? And you get away, any manager these days gets away with that if the team's winning. If they're not, that's when the criticism comes. And I look at the reasons for that, and Andy, you and I have on here moaned long and weary about a lack of physicality and pace in this side, and both are evident. But here's the other thing, we play this 4-2-3-1. The manager is absolutely wedded to it. I asked him after the Lyon game if he would change it. He says, yeah, if the circumstances were right, I would change it, but this is, I feel, the best way for us to get results. So he believes in it and he's sticking to it. For me, that formation relies upon you having several things, but in terms of the upfront, it relies on you having wingers, ideally quick wingers, but certainly wingers, wide players who can both stay at the touchline or come in, depending on what you want to do, right? So you need wingers, and then you need a centre forward who's a fulcrum, the way that Morelos could do, i.e. back to goal, hold the ball up, bring others into the attack, occupy the centre backs. And Rangers currently have got one fit winger in Czerny who isn't quick. And then we've got guys who can play in there, which is always, I think, a bit of a red flag. But so we're currently operating with one fit winger, a slow one. Dessers cannot do the job he's been asked to do. Over and above any debates about his ability or his attitude or anything people might want to throw at him, taking him and asking him to do it is asking him to do something he does not have the skill set to do. His hold-up play is not good enough. He doesn't occupy defenders. He will never be able to because he's 30. This is who he is. So what you're continuing to do if you play this system, in my opinion, when you don't have the players, certainly currently for it, I would argue Rangers might not have the players in the squad full stop, but certainly at the moment, you've set up this system that only functions correctly if you've got these types of players. Rangers don't. Rangers have scored this season one away goal, which is disgraceful. Only Ross County have scored the same or fewer. Right? We are, with Ross County, the lowest away scoring team in the division. And for me, a large part of that is that you have this system that cannot work with the personnel you have. It's simply, it will not change because Dessers is not going to be able to do what the player in there needs to do for you. And the options you have on the wing are also not conducive. And the proof of the pudding is we don't score enough goals.
Yeah, you've kind of saved me for launching into Dessers because I think that's a fair assessment of we're asking him to do something that he can't do. I'd probably say, but you know, some of the stuff is so basic that you ask the question of how he's managed to get this far in professional football without having some of those prerequisites.
Because he scores goals, mate. And the modern era, it's the stats thing. Because he does score goals, that's it. But in terms of, there's also a reason why he's not a bigger league, and it's because these days that's not enough for top forwards. You've got to be able to contribute to the all-round game plan. And he can, and by the way, for example, that breakaway that Kev referred to earlier, that's nothing to do with the system. That is a shocking lack of technical ability to not be able to pick that pass out. Yeah. And he was rubbish, don't get me wrong. He had he touched the ball 11 times in the first half and he was dispossessed 8 of them, right? That is just really poor for a forward. But even if he was flying and in his top form, he can't do that because he's skilled. He doesn't have it in his locker.
Yeah. And I mean, so I've got a major problem, and I don't want to turn it into a broken record, but I've spoken long and weary about this kind of power equation in our team. And Stephen Harrigan actually came up with a phrase, and I thought, that's what I'm trying to say. He said, look, we've got a press with no contact. I can no longer abide watching Czerny get close to a guy, closing him down and jockeying him and get not even close to getting a foot in. And this is where our problems start defensively, because I think we're easy to play through. And when I play through, I mean literally play through from their goalkeeper to the front. We can be played through dead easily by any team with half a ambition to do so. And it starts with that kind of press, because Czerny's not going to stop it. It's going to then come back down onto your left back. And I've also got an issue now with the balance of Diamande and Barron, right? 2 players individually who I quite like, got promise for full recognition of their age and their experience, but they're too light. We're not winning tackles. We're not winning balls. Diamande especially looks to me lost because I don't think he knows what his job is. He's got a good wee shake of the hips to get away from a player, but it's far too deep for my liking. And then when he runs forward, he doesn't get a quick 1-2 or the things that, you know, are supposed to happen. Bajrami, it's too early to say about him, but, you know, at least he shows some ability and willingness to take people on, and you can see he likes a shot. But again, if you then couple him with a Czerny on the other side, it's 2 fairly lightweight players, and you might be sitting there saying, Andy, but that's not their job. I know it's not their job, but I want them to have at least some attributes that talk to that. Because when you add up Czerny, Bajrami,
it's part of their job, mate.
Well, I know it is, but
think it's part of. No. I agree. I'm defending you here. If people say that, I think they're wrong. I think you're right. Nobody these days, with the maybe possible exception of Kylian Mbappe, is freed from that sort of duty. You have to do it. If it's good enough for Mohamed Salah and Diaz at Liverpool to do it, ordinary players should be doing it.
So you then got a front 4 of Cherny, Bajrami, Dessers and Lawrence who couldn't tackle fish up, to be quite honest with you. So you're not going to get any form of press that works there. They're just going to play around you, no matter who you're playing, what level you're playing at. And then you've got midfield and Barron and Diamandi who work manfully, work really, really hard, energy, but physically, I'm afraid, it's not enough as a twosome, right? You could have, and that's why I'm always going on about Sterling in the middle of part, and he's not the answer. I'm saying Sterling purely because he's the only point of reference we've got where we've got a guy that could actually live physically with most of the Kilmarnock players yesterday. And then I do feel sorry for the centre halves and the defenders, the fullbacks, because by the time they're on, it's far too easy to get on top of them, right? There's no defensive structure in front of them that's working. And this is a recipe for disaster if we want to get to where we want to go to. And that's why Celtic are going to be a problem to us. That's why our European games are going to be a utter nightmare once we hit Spurs and Man United. And this far into the game with Clermont, he should be wise to this. And Adam Thornton has been right all along because he says he's playing a system that doesn't suit the players. I've always then said, what system suits these players? Because if you have zero physicality or not enough physicality, what can you actually do here? So we've got a major problem in that. What do you do? You've mentioned three at the back, stuff like that, David. Something radical has to happen. And the suggestion I would have that's radical is do not play Dessers anymore. Or if you must, make sure that the 10 space or this run about him is the young boy, Agaman, because he is the only forward player we've got with any even visible to the eyes strength or upper body strength, or can hold the ball, or can win a ball back up the park. And I don't buy, and people say I'm a Philistine, I do not buy that a number 10 has to be a number 10. Lawrence Shanklin proved that for me, and I'd have had him as your inverted commas number 10 if I could. I think we need to get another striker up beside Dessers. I think the only reason he's playing is because he's on 25 grand a week, because he scored goals for us, but it's to the detriment of the overall team. Listen, David, I could go on and on and on. We've not got enough goals in the team. We've not got enough shots in the team. We've zero threat at set pieces. We don't win free kicks up the park to allow us to get that shot and goal that might win us a game or win us a point. It's bereft of adaptation and solutionising. And this is why yesterday, as I say, I was watching that and I could not believe my eyes. It felt like that game with St Mirren with Van Bronckhorst. It felt like that game with Beale where you're kind of like, what the hell is this? You know, what are we doing here? It's beyond comprehension that we've overthought this game so much. But then you look at the personnel and say, right, well, what would you do different? And apart from putting Sterling in and being really either brave or stupid and playing Igaman instead of Dessers, you know, give me maybe Bajram in the middle and move Launch out right, I don't know. What can you do?
Could you not move to like a 3-5-2 and go Casemiro at the back with the two centre backs? Then you push Jeff Day and Tavernier, it would probably be on the right hand side. Then you get an extra body in midfield, and you have another striker up with Dessers who can hopefully spread the load a wee bit in terms of occupying the defence. Now, what you lose in that is, of course, the wingers, but we have one fit winger. So to change the system and, as I say, gain hopefully a bit more solidity at the back, an extra man in midfield and a help for Dessers, what you lose is Cherny. And right now I'm not sure that is not a price worth paying, to be quite honest with you.
I've just realised you're saying one fit winger as in fitness. I thought you meant one fit as in 1 foot, because that's what it is. He's a one-trick pony and people are wise to it and he should be delivering so much more. Listen, why could we not have moved them out to the left-hand side for the last 15 minutes and see if we get the byline? Things like that boil my piss because it changes the dynamic. It gets their players facing their own goals, but we don't even attempt to do that. There's no mix-up whatsoever. The substitutes kind of validated that. He brought subs on at 60 minutes yesterday that changed nothing. It was just a personnel change. So that's why I'm... you tell me, apathetic or angry. I don't really know what it is, but it seems to be a realisation of what we truly are. And listen, maybe I was in denial, but I always think you need to give folk a chance. But the redemption road here is long and winding, and I can't see it.
Kev, it doesn't look that this is... I mean, Andy mentioned there are basics in this team that I just don't see. The way we play appears to be to... as I say, keep possession, try to fashion a chance, generally through something that an individual player will do, be it Lawrence or a couple of weeks ago it was Cherny did it, but that generally is what we seem to hope to do. And yesterday when nobody does it, then you look absolutely bereft. But I don't see organisation. I don't see a strong shape. I don't see, as Andy mentioned there, a strong press. We're not good at set pieces, which is another thing. These are all coaching things. And while we can rightly talk about the shit show that has been the board, and I mean, we've done that plenty and we'll do it again. I'm just talking here about things the manager can control. These are things the manager can control. And they might not be enough to win you a title, obviously, because if another team has got better players, that's going to be very tough. But, yesterday you saw a team that was Kilmarnock, that looked coached. They knew what they were doing, right? They obviously don't have players on the same amount of money as we do, but they knew what they were doing. And he's been here a year, and I don't think any of the players that have been here that year have improved under him. And I don't look at that team and say, well, you can see that we clearly work on X or Y. There's no evidence of it on a Saturday or Sunday or whenever we play.
The manager speaks a lot about potential. This is his go-to thing, right? For me, the main job of the Rangers manager is to win games of football, and you've got to find ways to win. Now, you're correct, we can do a whole other pod about squad building, about transfer windows, about boardrooms, but right now we have just got to pee with the you-know-what that we've got. How do we get the best out of these players? And as you said, we can't really go down what we're good at because it's a pretty short list. You mentioned earlier that we're better in Europe because teams play sort of to our strengths, and we're not going to get that in Scotland. Teams are not going to come out. So how do we break down teams like Kilmarnock? You need to move them about. You need to get close to each other, and you need to have pace when they do come out on the rare occasions. Whether that be their attacking set plays, whether it be they've moved up the pitch for whatever reason, like we spoke about. You need to have pace and good decision making, and like you say, a good press would help that as well, where you can press high up the field, force them into an error, or force them to punt it long, you regain the ball, and away you go. We don't have that. And like you say, there's many things that the coach could do to make us better, right? None of us rate Dessers here, right? But he does score goals. And Andy asked why he's playing. It's because of squad mismanagement that they've only got one fit striker. Could we put a man up there beside him? Because I do believe that for all Dessers is really, really poor at hold-up play, he's not bad at sort of one-touch flicks if someone's really close to him. So how can we improve that? Can we get players closer to him? Because I don't think, as well as Tom Lawrence has done this season, I don't think he's the answer. He's not mobile enough in there. So can we get someone else in beside him? David, you mentioned going to a 3-5-2. Would it work? Who knows? Because we've never tried it. We don't have players, like you mentioned, the good old Alfie, who would occupy 2, sometimes 3 players, leaving someone else unmarked. We're just so easy to play against and defend against. Set plays, a bugbear. I mean, Kilmarnock scored yesterday from a pretty simple, let's be honest, goal. It was ruled offside. It was just offside, but it doesn't take away from the way they work the ball. They change the angle, they put it in. Ours seem to be Tav strolls over, Tav hits it in, and sometimes we've mixed it up by letting one or two others hit it, but it's generally a hit and hope. There's no, I don't see any sort of blocking, trying to get maybe John Suter to attack the ball from deep or anything like that. And these are things when we're watching from the stands and you look and you can't understand what a manager's doing or what we're trying to do. This is when fans get frustrated. If we tried something that you could say, right, okay, it didn't work, but I see what we're trying to do. I can see how we're trying to leave Cherny one-on-one. And like we spoke about Cherny, right, I think he played quite okay a couple of weeks ago when Tav was overlapping a lot. Now, Tav's not got the legs to do that anymore. So again, why have we brought this player in and sort of not helping get the best out of him? He is a one-footed wonder, right? But we need to help him. Again, we're not helping him. We're just sort of leaving him there against 2 and 3 defenders and asking to beat him and put him in the corner. It's, as you say, it's all very... I mean, we used to laugh and joke about the 90s, how it was give it to Brian or give it to Paul and they'll do something. Now it's just sort of, I hope somebody else does something because I'm just going to play it safe and pass it in one. It's a shambles, really.
See, on that, And this was interesting. The manager's post-match comments, nothing a manager says, I like to think I'm reasonably fair on this, nothing a manager says after a defeat is going to make you feel better, right? That's just a fact. There is nothing, because personally you want them to go and savage the players because you feel that way, but it's not going to get anywhere, and I understand why managers don't do it. But I do think there's a healthy balance between recognising what the fans have just watched and gaslighting them, and I think that Clement goes too far into the gaslighting thing where, as Kev says, he mentions statistics, he mentions possession. Yesterday he said we dominated the second half. No, we didn't. And when managers do that, when they try to tell you that what you watched wasn't what you watched, I think that you damage your credibility with the supporters. And you need that. You need the credibility with them. As I say, that doesn't mean you need to come out and say, oh, he's rubbish and chuck all of them under the bus, because you need them to do you a turn. But one thing that does concern me, Andy, is in terms of the old fabled, lost a dressing room or whatever you want to call it. Right now, after we got beat at Dundee, or drew 0-0, sorry, at Dundee last year, but just after the back of Ross County, the manager came out and he actually said, no, it's all. And that was the first one where it really kind of annoyed the fans. But that night, Dujon Sterling came out and said, it was rubbish. And, after the other day, that was just totally unacceptable. And sort of contradicted what the manager said, to the point where he was asked about it then at the next press conference. After Leon, Jack Butland said, I think we needed a slightly different type of approach out there tonight. Yesterday, Leon Balogun said, it's not just a blip, it's happening far too often, you can't call it a blip. It seems to me that the players, and by the way, those three players are in the leadership group. Those three that I've just mentioned are in the Rangers leadership group. So they're three senior players and they're considered that at the club. They're coming out and saying things that are directly opposite to what the manager is saying. And that really does worry me. Maybe, again, this is a learned experience, because having spoke to guys who played under Le Guin, they said that he would come in every week after a terrible result or performance and say, no, we just need to stick together. It's coming. Mm-hmm. And they're like, no, it isn't. What are you seeing? So it doesn't just damage with the fans, it can damage with the players. And that is a worry for me, that, as I say, you've had three senior players who 3 times, and I admire the fact they've all been honest. They've come out and they've said, that was a shambles, that was shocking after a shocking performance, and tried to take the responsibility, whereas the manager has used stats and whatnot. And one other thing that he's doing is he made the comment, you won't see the best Rangers team till about October, November. And he did say that, it was a quote. He's then said yesterday, well, look at the results we were having and the clean sheets before the international break. So it's like, right, so a couple of months ago you were saying, wait to the future. Now you're in the future, you're saying, but look at the past. It's a circular argument and it doesn't hold water.
Personally, I don't hold much sway with what managers say, because, after a game, they've got the coverage from the TV, they've got to get interviewed there, they've got the club TV coverage, they've got the written press, is that right? Or do they get the stuff you're in? Is that so? There's 3 different really sets of question sets, isn't there? But what we've got is exactly what I'm really, really worried about, which is, I said that it doesn't look like the team believe in what they're being asked to implement. And that wee analysis you've done there, where you come on saying one thing and then senior players saying another, even if it's coded, kind of points towards that. So I don't really blame, again, I don't really blame Clement for coming out and kind of trying to fight his corner, because that's the nature of the beast, and he's obviously trying to keep things dampened down. But I'm hoping that behind closed doors there's very frank conversations being had and he's listening to his players. But what we're seeing in the pitch doesn't reflect that, David, because if it was, we would be changing what we're doing. So this is my major concern, and I'm interested to see what the influence of. So the guy Underlink came in, Andres Underlink, and he seemed to do more than the guy's name escapes me, Van der Hayden or something like that. The other assistant, he seems to be doing more in the coaching side than the previous guy, and I'm like, well, is this his influence coming through? Is it completely come on? Is it a group thing? Alex Ray's there. I quite like Alec Ray, and I think he would be saying much the same as likes of what Chris Boyd was saying on the telly yesterday about this isn't working. You just don't know. But what is true is that the fans are kind of bullshit ready now. We know when we're getting spoken about in nonsense terms. We've seen it before. Van Bronckhorst used to do it as well. I know why he does it. I wouldn't read too much into it because we can all see what's happening. And I really, really hope that behind closed doors, they all see what's happening as well and there's a reaction to it. Time will tell. If nothing changes formation-wise and personnel-wise, Davey, and they don't even try something, then I'm wrong. And your assessment's absolutely bang on.
I hope I'm wrong.
But
get me misunderstood.
There is echoes with Le Guin. There is echoes with Le Guin.
I'm seeing them or hearing them, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's an echo.
And it's just like he used to say this thing, and I thought, no. He used to say football is football. You remember when he played a centre half for us, and we were losing every cross ball in the box. There's a wee bit of that with Clement creeping into my kind of spidey senses.
Yeah, as a worry. And Kev, as Andy mentions there, if we don't change something, then this is going to keep happening because I'll quote you something Leon Balogun said yesterday. This is not a blip. It happens far too often. So if we keep doing the same things, we'll keep getting the same results, which is we'll win most of our games at home, certainly, get wins away from home. Be nothing to write home about in terms of how it looks, but we'll get the results. But then every 4, 5, 6 games will come a cropper, and then when we come up against any real quality, we'll be in severe bother.
Listen, the Leon game summed it up as well, where another manager would have sort of tried something different, shut up shop a wee bit. Yes, we're at home, but they've got pace on the break. Let's sort of play our game as much as we can, but try and limit to them to what they can do. And whenever we just sort of went out and done the same thing, and it doesn't seem to matter if it's Ross County at home, Leon at home, Celtic away, whoever, we just sort of seem to go with the same thing and hope for the best. And as you say, see what happens. Will we get a good game out of Dessers today? We might, who knows, and we might win. I mean, I think we can all agree that yesterday was our best starting lineup we could have fielded.
Yeah.
There's nobody going, I really wish he was playing, or Kieran Dowell was coming on, and Dowell seems to be a blind spot. And I think this squad is sort of summed up by Dowell, where not really that strong, he's not that fast, he's a wee bit injury prone, but on his day he can do no bad. Like you maybe get a wee bit, and it's just very average. The question that's going about just now is, could another manager get more out of this squad? I think they could. I think they could set us up maybe to be more rigid. And I think Steve Forlands asked the manager about that in a press conference about, did you consider shutting up shop a wee bit and changing something? And he's like, oh no, then you would moan that I'm parking the bus. And I think it's been said before that there is a sort of middle ground there where you sort of don't park the bus, but you sort of tighten us up a wee bit. And you boys are talking about the Gwen and stuff. I mean, we've all been through enough of these before that you can see the red flags mounting up. And if you refuse to change and you go on Thursday night against Stoya, right, win, lose or draw, a win won't go, okay, everything's better, let's move on and let's kick on again. Because the game that everyone's looking at is Pittodrie next week. And if we were to go 9 points behind Aberdeen in third, you know what I mean? That's... And by November, that's a sackable offence in itself.
Yeah, I mean, it is. There's just no getting away from that. And, you know, I've had this argument with people when I've said, well, we can't keep sacking managers every autumn. But when that's the best defence for keeping one, that is pretty poor. Andy's right. The reality of it is, no matter what I think or, you know, what you think, that the board are invested in him. They want to keep him. They gave him that new deal. But the fans, once they turn, and I go back to something I said at the start, it's been pretty unanimous. Every bear I've spoken to, heard from, read online, is saying the same thing. And that's a full range of bears. That's your match-going guys, your guys that don't miss a game. It's your season ticket holders who go to home games. It's your guys who live abroad and watch it. It's your older guys that used to go but don't go as often. They're all saying the same thing. And when that happens, managers just don't last. Kev's right. Historically, we've seen it, because there's then nowhere to go. And I don't care what the situation is, the board then have to act. The board, I mean, who the hell's there to actually do it?
Clermont needs to pray for apathy, because at this point in time, right, I don't agree we should sack the manager unless we've got somebody lined up, because I don't want to get back into caretaker territory again. And I just think it's a pressure
sorry
we
to
don't need.
interrupt. I would be the opposite. If we sack him, we should appoint somebody temporary at the end of the season and get a new manager in,
Really?
announce him about March and let him come in and have the summer, because we've tried this. When you bring in a manager through the season, they get a bounce, everybody gets excited. Then if the team reverts to its level again, because they've not had time to they've not had that time to get their own ideas across in training, because we're playing every 3 days. Then they go into the following season, which is exactly what happened here. It's happened before as well. It happened with Gio. They go into the following season on a downer, start badly, boom. This has happened to Beale, happened to Gio, it's happened to Clermont. So for me, I would put somebody in temporarily until the end of the season, with the understanding of saying, right, it's about stability, getting something going here just now while we go out and get the right person who will come in and start on June the 1st and be able to go through there. But again, we're talking about a situation that I don't foresee happening.
No, only because of the board situation. The point I mean about apathy is he's got to pray for apathy as opposed to vitriol, because if we go back to where we were at the end of Beale's situation, then it just becomes super toxic. What a sad thing to say, that we need to pray for apathy for the Rangers support. I mean, the season isn't quite a write-off, because you've got to believe that you can compete in one-off cup competitions, but as far as the league goes, I got a bit of stick because I think it was the first game of the season or something like that. I was like we're going to be looking at third tier unless something radically changes, because I just sensed that I didn't quite see Aberdeen's resurgence, but I just sensed that we were, for what I've seen in the park, we weren't durable enough. So, but massive problems. I just want to throw one wee thing in there. If we're talking about parking the bus, I don't think we've got players to park the bus anyway, and we've not got the character or the defensive know-how. No, it's just not an option.
Yeah, we don't have the players to park the bus. We don't have the players to press. We don't have the players to go in the front foot. What do we have the players to do? And again, that is another reflection on the pathetic recruitment and this trick that Rangers have been in the last 3 years, that they managed to make the team, despite spending money each summer, they managed to make the team worse than it was at the end of the previous season. I disagree slightly, because I actually think apathy is the thing that gets rid of managers. And that might sound a bit counterintuitive, but I'll explain it. See, if people are in the stadium and angry, right? Yeah, they don't live in a bubble. But if the manager's getting results, then you've got your excuse to keep them. See, if there's 25,000 in that stadium, Andy, for a couple of games, the board will shit themselves because they can't afford that.
That's what's coming.
That's well, I know, and that's what gets. Michael Beale got sacked because Rangers sold, I think, 26,000 Europa League packages when he was the manager. And there were 30,000 people turned up to watch us against Real Betis, which was the biggest home game in that group. And the board went, oof. And so apathy actually goes against him. What he needs to do is to start digging out results. I don't expect Kev a sudden upturn in performances, because life isn't like that. They don't go from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, right? It just doesn't happen. But he needs to pick up results while he's getting through this and getting the form up. And I do think he needs to make changes, because what he is doing right now is going to end up with him getting sacked. That is, I think, just plain as a nose on your face. And the reason that we as fans know it, yeah, nobody can predict the future, but you can look at the past, and we've seen this before.
I love the saying, history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. I'm right in saying Michael Beale's last game was a 3-1 defeat at versus Aberdeen. Listen, if you're Philip Clermont, right, and you're looking at these games coming up, you've got to say, we're not scoring enough goals, we're not creating enough chances for a sole striker that needs 5 or 6 before he scores generally. So how do we create more chances? How do we score more goals without even making us even more open? The only thing I can see is a formation change. And like you boys said, I mean, we don't have the wingers, so why? I'm a great believer in, if you don't have a defensive midfielder, don't play one. If you've not got wingers, don't play with wingers. I think you might need to sacrifice them. You need to do something different, because if you continue to sleepwalk with this formation, and if we go on Thursday night and it's the same team with just Leon Balogun in for another injured player in proper, and we get the same result, then you probably won't hear the anger. You'll just hear the clacking of the seats going when people begin
Correct.
to leave about 70 minutes. I mean, for example, right, you look at the cup game at Hampden, that was empty. That was embarrassing, right? If you look at, I got a ticket today, offer me a ticket for the Motherwell semi-final. That's another telltale sign. People are losing interest, and I said, because it's repeated. But going back to the manager, what do you do? I say you need to try and get more out of what you've got. You need to try and get the positives and work on them. Like, I quite like Bayrami. I like the way he started. I think there's more from him if we put good players around him. But again, you've got to say, how do we get the best out of him? I say, I've heard people say, just drop Dessers, like Andy mentioned it earlier on, right? And it's a natural thing to do. But if you put Igmani up there, who didn't look that great in his first start, right, look a wee bit lost, and you're throwing a young boy on there. Now, we can talk about why he was bought and all that, but we've got him. And I think that could end your Rangers' career before it starts if you're sort of put up there and hung out to dry. So I can sort of understand why he's stuck with Dessers, but it's how we get the best out of Dessers. You need to get people closer to him. Put the two of them up together, because if you try something that doesn't work, but perhaps we can see positives, then it might buy you a wee bit more time. But ultimately, results. That's all that matters at Rangers. And I've said, and I've had this argument a lot with people this season, where the manager said, we've a lot of potential and we're building for the future, right? To me, building for the future at Rangers is, I mentioned this in our chat last night, that if we, a couple of years ago, when we bought Yilmaz, right, Bono was okay, and if we brought in a Yefty style signing then for $500,000, develop him up, to me that's planning for the future when you're at a position of strength. We will never be an Ajax where we can have a midfield with average age of 21 and we'll win some, we'll lose some. We'll never be that. Rangers need to win. They need to win now. And then when you're in a position of strength, that's when you build for the future. And I say, I've heard you before, David, say that we need to always have signings for right now, sort of middle to long term and the future. Right now, I think we've flung all of our eggs in the future basket, and it's not really going to work.
No. Well, not a cheery pod, lads, I've got to say, but to kind of finish up, what I would say is that if you are building something, when people come in at the early stage, they should at least see the foundation. And I can't right now. So it's all right saying, I'm building, but at the moment the building seems to be more theoretical rather than actual. And that is what the big concern is. But, of course, we will be there on Thursday, and then we will be there again on Saturday as Rangers get ready to, on Sunday, first of all, to take on FCSB in the Europa League, a crucial match for our hopes of getting through that group, and then take on St Mirren at Ibrox. My thanks to our producers, Mike Lee and Paul Myers, and my thanks to my two brilliant guests this afternoon. First of all, Andy McGowan.
I was going to say my pleasure. It wasn't a pleasure. It was horrendous, Davey. Thanks for having me on once again. I'm turning into some kind of Grim Reaper.
No, I had such a nice weekend as well. I had a gigs on Friday and on Saturday. That's why my voice is screwed, because I was singing my little heart out. I actually, I did some old man dad dancing and everything. There was even some bopping. There was even some pogoing, Andy, right, at my age and with my back condition. I regretted it, don't get me wrong, but I had a lovely weekend till Sunday at 5 to 12. And so I totally understand where you're coming from.
Aye, I know. What did I do? I can't even think what I did, but it's been totally obliterated by the Rangers as usual.
Yes, of course. And to Kevin, thank you.
Thank you, lads. Let's hope there's no flares on Thursday, because that's the last thing we need.
Don't we could do another pod about that. I'll bring flares.
The
trousers, aye, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Andy rocking up there looking like Huggy Bear.
Oh, you heard about my body search yesterday at Rugby Park?
Yes, I heard it was very intimate. I heard it was very intimate.
You guys like, you've got piles, mate. I mean, have I?
You should have done the old Harry Enfield and went, piles of money, and just walked on. But no. Listen, thanks for listening, folks. And, of course, we'll be back next week, because we keep on keeping on. Let's hope the team give us something pleasant to talk about. Thanks for listening, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.